Fast cars, rooftop lanes, dancing with the flames. Don't stop, don't speak, we're crossing every line. Clock ticks, heartbeat, we're running out of time. Go! We're alive tonight. Into the fight. Don't turn back now. Go, go, go. Don't stop, don't speak. We're crossing every line. Clock ticks, heartbeat. We're running out of time. Go. We're alive tonight. Into the fight. No turning back now. Go, go, go. Drilling through my veins, breaking all the chains. Fast cars, rooftop lanes, dancing with the flames. Don't stop, don't speak. We're crossing every line. Clock ticks, heartbeat. We're running out of time. Go! We're alive tonight. Into the fight. No turning back now. Go, go, go. Trust me now.
Hello and welcome to the Mac 25 Gaming Trinity Series Gran Turismo esports event, the Grand Finals. I'm your host, Flash Dagger. I'll be taking you through tonight's action for the English language broadcast of the final event in this series. Trinity Series comprises esports competitions across three of the main racing games on the market: Gran Turismo, ACC and LMU, with the stream obviously focused on the Gran Turismo competition. On Monday evening, we had our two semi-final races at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve to determine who would be competing in our grand finals, where the racing was just simply fantastic. It was a mix of strategies, battles, incidents and drama. And tonight, we have our finalists set, ready to give it their all and be crowned Trinity Series champion for both themselves and their respective esports teams. The competition will be absolutely fierce, there's no doubt, so it's not one to be missed. But before we get to that, let's take a little look at the races that happened on Monday evening. Recap what happened to get ourselves there. If you did see it Monday evening, you saw an absolute show. And if you didn't, I'll just give you a little bit of background as to what happened. So nice to see so many of you in. I can see Viscerals, Jaime Marta, great to see you. Good showing from yourself at Pulpy. And a few of the other guys. We've got obviously Deck, Jay Murphy, Richie, great to see you. Nick and Mr. Alf. Good to see my team sports there to support Punisher, no doubt. But let's just get a little look and see what happened. So, on Monday evening, we had two semi-finals. So, semi-final number one, featuring the following 14 teams. And semi-final results were as follows. Charles in first with an absolutely outstanding drive, held off, didn't give all of his pace, and really brought it back towards the end to take the lead from Jose Art. Great drive. We had obviously Nikito, stellar performance as usual, would be expected. And I think for P4, we've got Deck, that's Jay Murphy, the Irish driver representing Dream Team Racing. Probably not the ideal strategy. Starting on the hard tires, the only driver in both slots to do so, but the pace and the caliber of driver he is really shone through when he brought that one back. Penalva, Morey and Punisher. Punisher, fortunately, running out of fuel on the line, and Galeco with some really bad luck. The Wall of Champions claimed him and put Moray up into the qualifying position. So there's your top 7 from slot 1. Semi-final number 2 comprised the following teams, some very, very familiar teams across the esports in EMEA and further afield. And that was an absolutely outstanding race. If you haven't seen it, I would suggest go back and watching it. In terms of a mix of strategies, attacking moves, alternating crossovers and defensive moves, side by sides, lap in, lap out. It was Krakenstein's own Manuel Hernandez was able to bring home the victory, having again held off from starting too fast. Mehdi Hafidi opened up a 2.5, almost 3-second gap, but the battery unfortunately wasn't there to be had. Legatas with an outstanding drive, starting on softs. The mediums, he just didn't quite make up the time on the first stint. Was caught up, gobbled up, and struggled the last 2 laps. Alex from Elite Racing Team, he had an excellent drive, bring it in, and Armando was with the leading 4. He went for the medium slint, followed by Gumu and Axian's Alex in P7. They are your qualifiers for tonight, and these are your finalists. Customs GT, Krakensteins, Isles Esports, and the drivers that were representing them, providing there haven't been any changes, are from CGT, Charles, Krakensteins, Manuel Hernandez, Isles, Jose Art, Alien, Mehdi Hafidi. From Azteca, Nikito, that's Enrico Garcia, Visceral, Legatus, Dream Team Racing, Jay Murphy, Elite Racing, that's Alex Willem, Jokers, Ivan Penalva, Avalon, Armando Gonzalez, Deluxe Moray, Only Sim Racing Gumu, and my team, Punisher, and rounding out with an Axian Alex 24. 14 drivers, 7 rows on the grid. I can see a few more people are coming in now. Great to see you. A few people are looking for the ID. I'm just sitting here having a conversation with Alejandro about that. But while he is dealing with that, I am just going to take a look at, if I can find it, the regulations. So we've looked at our finalists. We're going to look at the regulations for tonight. Then I'm just going to take a short pause and go and have a conversation with Alejandro. I hear your message loud and clear, Richie. That's being worked on at the moment. So the regulations for tonight's final, again, it's going to be in the McLaren P1 GTR 16, a very familiar car that we obviously used on Monday evening. Yas Marina circuit. So first time really going to be seeing this in an esports format. 27 laps, and it's going to be at ×2 time for speed. And unlike the ×4 tire wear, it's going to be ×2 tire wear and ×2 fuel. But also there's a battery element involved there. Tires available are all. Slipstream is weak. However, unlike Monday evening, where there was no fixed number of pit stops, no fixed tires to use, one set of softs and one set of medium tires must be used in the race in order to be compliant with the rules. And we'll have a little look at that. Now, as it stands, I'm just going to take a little moment, go back onto the holding screen and try and get you guys a lobby ID. So just give us a moment. I'll be back with you in 2 minutes.
Don't stop, don't speak. We're crossing every line. Clock ticks, heartbeat. We're running out of time. Go. We're alive tonight. Into the fight. No turning back now. Go, go, go. Drilling through my veins, breaking all the chains. Fast cars, rooftop lanes, dancing with the flames. Don't stop, don't speak. We're crossing every line. Clock ticks, heartbeat. We're running out of time. Go! We're alive tonight. Into the fight. No turning back now. Go, go, go. Show
And we are back. We are back, and I believe we got the lobby working. Just to give you a little check to see exactly what's happening here. We do have the lobby up and running, so that is good news. Not sure what exactly the issue was on that side, but it seems to be resolved. I see quite a few people have come in. It's great to see so many of you. Lovely to see so many of the Spanish community, which has really been built around. What I would say, if at all possible, is if you can try and keep it to English where you can, that would be very, very helpful, because the reason for this stream is that we're not native Spanish speakers. As much as I would love to be able to speak such a beautiful language, unfortunately my Spanish does not extend beyond hello and goodbye and ordering a beer, which is going to get you so far in a Gran Turismo stream. But yes, we are live, and just to give you an idea, just to very, very quickly recap on what we were doing. These are our finalists. We've gone through them. Now, as you can see, there are 14 different teams, 14 different drivers, 7 rows on the grid. 2 sets of 7 qualifiers from each of the semi-finals on Monday. What hasn't been determined is which side of the row they're going to be on. So, for example, Customs GT and Kraken Staines both won their individual races on Monday evening, and that was Manuel Hernandez and obviously Carlos Jules. So, what hasn't been determined is who's going to be starting first, who's going to be second. Same down the grid for row 2 from Isles and Alien, row 3 Azteca and Visceral, row 4 DTR and Elite Racing Squad, and so on and so forth. So what is going to be happening is we're going to be having a draw, and the draw itself will take place in the form of a vote. You will not know which team it is, so there's no funny business. It'll just be 2 colors of envelopes, and whoever gets voted will get their place 1 and 2, so it's completely fair and transparent for everyone. Let me know if the sound quality is okay on my side. Let me know if you can hear me okay. Let me know if everything's working, because your feedback is important. It's going to be quite a challenge, but we will get there. We will get there. Now, while I'm waiting for Alejandro to give the prompt, whenever he is ready to start, which I can see he is, I will cut across to him and we will have a little look at what's going on. So he is going to be doing the draw. He is going to be talking us through that at this stage, and we'll just have a little look to see exactly who comes out on the grid. So this is again for grid positions. So reminding ourselves that our P1 finishers in slot 1 and 2 were CGT and Kraken Staines. Our P2 finishers, Isles and Alien with Medi Hafidi and Jose Art. That's Jose Manuel Arteaga. Row 3, Azteca and Visceral. Row 4, DTR ERS. Row 5, Jokers E-Team and Avalon. Row 6, Deluxe Esports and Only Sim Racing. And row 7... row 7 is going to be my team and Anexion. So that is it. That is what is happening. And we are going to get the envelopes going at this stage, and hopefully we can see exactly who is going to be pulled from the votes and set on the grid in that particular order. So let me know who you're all in here supporting. I know there's obviously a lot of support for Deck, Jay Murphy. But let me know exactly who you're here supporting. I did see someone coming in from my team earlier on. I've seen from Visceral also we had a few in. Let me know who you're here to support. And of course, I've got Mr. Alf saying the draw is back to front starting in 7th row. Yep, perfect. And that will be set obviously by Alejandro. You can see he is putting them in on the grid now. So from the hat, obviously, Axion, which is Alex, has got the luck of the draw and my team Punisher, unfortunately, starting in the last place. A lot of very, very unfortunate for Punisher. Had excellent qualifying in slot 1 on Monday evening. This first semi-final, I think he qualified in P2. Got a lot of damage in his first stint, slowed him right the way down, got it repaired, made his way back up into the qualifying positions, and just pushed too hard and ran out of fuel and lost a couple of spots on the final straight to the line. So I think we're doing row 6 now, which will go into the hat for deluxe and only sim racing. And we'll see who comes out. So it's only sim racing. And now deluxe. Now we'll go in on the grid again. Getting feedback. The sound is good. That's great to hear. I wasn't too sure from the last day if we'll get a better idea whenever the engine sounds are going and we get all the noise and background noise out of the way. But again, great to see so many of you in here supporting this event, supporting essentially what is Mac 25 Gaming and their winter series, a short series to give everyone a run out on the new tracks before we finish 2025 and go into 2026. So very much appreciate you all being here. And again, I apologize for the delay, but hopefully we can get things back on track and it'll be worth the wait. So obviously only sim racing, which is Gumu, is going to take that slot ahead of Deluxe's Moray. And now we have our row number 5 just being set on the grid, and that will be between obviously Joker's E-Team and Avalon. And we'll see who come out ahead in that one with a couple more rows to go. While this is happening, just to give you a recap, because I'm not as enthused about looking at envelopes. Hopefully I will come back in a couple of moments and have a few more rows done, but just to have a look at what is happening with the car. If you're not familiar with the car that's going to be used tonight, the car is the McLaren P1 GTR 16. It's born out of a demand from the P1 owners who, again, we'll repeat it, have more money than sense to build a performance track version of that car, boasting almost 1,000 horsepower, which is, reference almost double the McLaren Group 3. There's no road restrictions and it's an absolute powerhouse. I actually had the opportunity to test this last night on this track to see what sort of strategies will be available. We'll talk about those in due course. But my word, I have a substantial amount more empathy for the drivers now having tried the car than I did on Monday when I didn't have the opportunity at that notice. So that will be the car that is currently being used. And obviously, if you have a little look here and see what is the track. The track is obviously Yas Marina. We'll go into that. Set in Abu Dhabi. It's a 5.2 kilometer track. It's hosted the season-ending F1 race since 2009. Located on the reclaimed Yas Island. Famous, very, very famous track for its long straights. Very fast-flowing corners. I'm sure you've all tried it out since the update. And very heavy braking zones, which could cause some incidents, could cause some action, and a very technical final sector, which is quite tricky to get the grips with. Famous for the controversy surrounding the finish of the 2021 F1 season and a 1-week addition to Gran Turismo 7. This is a track that should provide a stellar test and an ideal location to name our champion. Let's go back with Alejandro and see what we have on the grid. It seems that Jokers have beat Avalon. ERS have beaten out Dream Team Racing on the 4th row off the grid. We're getting row number 3 done at this stage. I'm putting in the name. So it's going to be, what's looking like P5 is going to be, I think, is that going to be Nikito in P5 and Legadas, who had an outstanding drive in the second race, in P6. So now we're into the big guns. Now we're into the front 2 rows off the grid. Some outstanding drivers to get placed from CGT's Charles, Krakenstein's Manuel Hernandez, an outstanding event for him, both at GT Pulpy and this past Monday evening. We've got Isles, Jose Art, return to form really for Jose Art, Jose Manuel Arteaga, and last but by no means least, putting himself really into contention until an unfortunate incident on the very, very final straight off the final lap. Just to make you aware, for Mehdi Hafidi, the former world champion for Nissan, there was no further action once an investigation was done. Post-race, no action to be taken. It was essentially too much steering inputs, caused essentially a loss of grip, and he ultimately put himself into the wall trying to make that move. So that was unfortunate, but an excellent drive all round from himself to be leading the race, drop back, come back into it, and be in a position to put himself on the second row of the grid. Now, as we can see here, it's the leaders, it's the front 2, it's CGT for Charles and Manuel Hernandez. These two both had a very similar race, starting towards the front, but both really played the long game, didn't take off too fast, played and managed the battery, managed the tires, and the pace at which Charles, particularly worth shouting out that he's a pad driver, known in the Spanish community as Pad King, was able to actually manage his rear tires better than many of the other wheel drivers on course. So that was very interesting to see, where particularly the pad has been known to have worse tire wear. He did an exceptional job with that and ended up taking home the victory. So that was great to see. So let's see who will be taking our pole position to round out the grid for the grand finals in this Mac 25 Gaming Trinity Series event. Yes, and to echo Richie's point, if you are, you've been watching the events on Monday or tonight, again, apologies for the delay, but I think we're about 15 minutes behind, which from my experience isn't actually too bad. We'll be underway anytime soon. As I can see that all the drivers are actually in and practicing right now. As I take a look over my shoulder in the Flash Cave, we've got a Diet Coke ready just in case we need it. But I think we're going to have an excellent race. Who's your money on? Let me know in the chat who you're again here supporting, what you want to see happen, what you think some of the strategies are. I've had a go on this last night, did a run, have come up with 3 different strategies for this race. 27 laps off the Yas Marina in the McLaren P1 GTR edition, 1,000 horsepower, unbelievable car to drive. And we have it. Charles taking P1 and Krakenstein's Manuel Hernandez in P2. That is our grid order for tonight. But my word, I again have a lot more empathy what they have to handle, having driven this track in that car. It is a handful. My word, I tried to go out and do it without traction control. I had a word with myself and dropped the hard man routine and thought, you know what, I just can't handle this. It's just got too much torque and power. Even with traction control 1, I'm bringing this to you anecdotally, so when you're watching this race, you can understand that if they're managing the car, exactly what they're going through. Even in TC1, you're able to over-rotate the car in 4th gear. The torque is incredible, and you've got a battery deploying as well. So the things that these guys have to manage, the skill gap that this type of a race will really identify from someone like myself, who is a bit of a TT merchant in Group 4, can pretend that I'm somewhat decent at the game, but when you have a combination like this is where, as opposed to like a race B or a race C, where you can have custom slipstream ×1 when you add in tire wear, when you add in strategy, when you add in a new type of car, when you add in, being able to manage tires, manage fuel, being able to manage the race and manage the field, and also manage a battery and do all these things together. I have no doubt that across this combination, I'd be finishing no better than 30 to 40 seconds behind the leading driver. That is the level they are driving at. And I did not fully appreciate what I was looking at on Monday evening when I watched them. But having had a go at the combination myself, I can tell you that the level these drivers are driving at and the level that they're able to take this car to, if you haven't, have a go, buy it yourself, take it around the track. It is a beast of a car and incredibly, incredibly difficult to handle. So kudos to everyone for even making it here and getting through the first race at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, because it was just an absolute beast to tame, and some of them did a fantastic job with it. So I'm not sure how long we have before the race is starting. So what I'm going to do, if it's okay with yourselves, is I'm just going to look at some of the strategy options that I have looked at that I think might come into play, or certain variations of that. And the first one is starting in mediums, 10 laps in mediums, another 10 laps in mediums, 7 on the softs to finish with. That's a very conservative approach to the race. You won't have to fuel save. You won't really have to manage your tires, and you'll be finishing strong on the softs. That would be kind of the built-in one, I would say. Strategy number 2, this is more of an aggressive strategy. Maybe you're starting at the front. Maybe you want to avoid the chaos, the calamity, all of the bomb sight that happens. You think you've positioned well in the grid. You look and take inspiration from VQS and Pulpy, who at Red Bull Ring went and said, we'll get away from the turn 3 bomb sight. Let's start on the soft tire. Let's get the space. Maybe these guys want to get away early, build up a gap, take themselves away from those 2 heavy braking zones in lap 1 at the hairpin and at the chicane. You can do 7, another 7, and then finish 13. However, there is one strategy which may trump all, and it's what I would call a bit of a death or glory strategy, because if you pull it off, it's going to be amazing. If you get it in any way wrong, it's game over for you, and you might not even finish the race. And that is the one-stop. The one-stop strategy is available. Now, I'm absolutely awful at this game, and I was able to make the tires and the fuel last 18 laps. I made the battery last about 3 laps, mind you. So these guys are only managing the battery as well. But you can get round 18 laps on the fuel, and you can have a longer stint in softs at the end. The pit stop is around about 20 seconds just with a tire change, not including any fuel. So to be able to remove a potential pit stop and get round there by, simply just short shifting it about 2/3 as opposed to 3/4, 65% instead, and a little bit of fuel mapping in the final technical section, you can get your 18 laps done. But what does that mean for you if you get it wrong? What does that mean for you if you get held up? What does that mean for you? Because once you're committed to that strategy, you're committed to it. There's nowhere else to go. Or potentially you could find themselves in a reverse situation of option number 2. But I think, that was this is what we can have a look at. I'm got all the names written down so I can keep a track of what tire they're starting on, what tire they're changing to, because I do believe that there's going to be people all over the track at various different times who are still in the race, like we saw on Monday night. It wasn't over. We saw that drive from Legatus where he did the alternate strategy. He was way behind, but we could see him clawing back from 16.5 to 15 to 14 to 13, down to 12 seconds he gained, but it just wasn't quite enough for him. Will we see someone going on the softs and getting the gap? Will we see a lot of similar runners, or will we see someone try the no-stop strategy a lot more successfully than I was able to do it? But certainly I do believe it's a viable option. Got some more of the DTR guys in the room. Again, good to see you, Nick. Let's go. Gotta be Deck. He was driving the socks off at last race. Yes, have to acknowledge the drive that I think that Jay Murphy had. I think he would be the first to admit that starting in the hard compound of Tower was just really irrelevant for that race. It wasn't the right call. But the ability to be able to adapt and deal with the pressure, knowing that he was essentially down to almost last place at one stage and was 20 seconds down on the leading two drivers, and having been one of the fastest drivers on paper at the start of the race, was now finding himself in a position where he was outside the qualifying positions with a little bit of pressure on his shoulders, was able to put out some outstanding laps on the medium stint once he got to grips with the car, with the track, and really just plow right through the field and get himself up to P4. So that was a great drive, and there were many great drives from many other drivers on the track. You know, I think everyone put in a good effort and put their best foot forward. But ultimately, we can maybe take a little look at what is going on within the lobby and see what some of these guys are doing, and take a little look to see who is out on track, which I am going to do now to make sure that I don't sound balance is like from the volume of myself versus what's happening on track. That'll be great to get that feedback, as it will set us up for the race going forward. Now, what it does appear to me, rather annoyingly, is there's been a few driver swaps. So there's been a few driver swaps from the initial qualifying stages to those who are now racing for their teams. So I can see that the Gatas, who obviously managed to qualify in, I think it was P3 or P4, but Visceral is being replaced by Jaime Marti, formerly of Isles. I can see that Nixo appears to be replacing Alex for ERS. I think for Ava, I'm not sure who Ava is, but I'm not sure. But there's a few different names and characters in here that I didn't quite recognize. I can see that the Isles driver is Jay Carrillo, seems to be replacing Jose Art, which is a real shame because it's such a good job on Monday evening. And to be quite candid, quite annoying for me actually, having researched all of the different drivers and then getting thrown a curveball. So it is. We'll just have to deal with it and work our way through. Game sound is too loud versus your voice. Okay, we can turn it down a little bit more. We'll turn it down to 5. Let me know how that is, Richie. How's the balance in that, guys? Let me know if that's any better, worse, too quiet now, going too far. How's it sounding? Okay, you think this is much better? Okay, well we'll leave it at this then, unless anyone is struggling, and we'll go with this. But yeah, so we can say we'll just watch the drivers going around the track and just get an idea as to what gears they're using and how they're managing. And I can tell you for one thing, that particular chicane, it's very easy to cut the initial curve and create an angle for yourself to exit on, but in this particular car, it does not like that first curve at all. Will throw your car all over the place. The second curve and exit isn't bad to go over the top of, but the entry curve is quite awful, in fact. You can see them using the higher gears because there's just so much torque. And you might see a whole lot of fourth gear being used here where you might have initially thought it was a third, or a third where you might have thought it was a second, because there is just so much power in the car. You can see all of that riding at the throttle. And one of the things we didn't pay probably quite as much attention to as maybe we should have is don't imagine that this is the race starting. I can't believe it's the race starting, is it? Well, apparently it is. It's a good job I was watching. Okay, well, I guess we're getting ready. 2 lights, 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights. Charles in P1, ready to take us away for this grand final. Getting away very, very well. He's on the medium tire, followed closely by KRK's quarter, but Carrillo is making the move. It's going 3 wide through the first corner. My goodness, is going to play in Charles' hand. We've got one going very, very wide. He's going to take the advantage. He's going to give Charles a nice little gap and a little bit of breathing space going into this first hairpin bend. I think they'll all be panicking. Who is going to miss their brakes? Shall anyone miss their brakes? Because we do have heavy damage on in this grand final and the semi-finals, but hopefully it's looking like they're all going to get away clean. But Charles is opening the gap there, the 7.5 tenths. He is pulling away very strongly to give himself that clear line of sight into the first round of this very first deadly chicane. I am panicking as to what is going to happen. I hope they'll get through here clear. We want to see a very, very good race. But Charles again leading the way from Cuerdo. Mehdi Hafidi in P3. Now down to P4. Visceral's Jaime Marty, formerly Oils, up into P3. We'll have a little look after the first lap to see what tires these drivers are on. But as it stands, Charles is extending that gap to 1.3 seconds now. Charles was the driver on Monday evening who was able to sit back and play the long game. Is he now on the other side of the coin? Is he starting too fast? Is he, or does a different strategy? Maybe his strategy is the 2-stopper. Maybe we're seeing some drivers holding back because they're planning on pitting later, or a combination of tires. All is to play for. But as it stands, Charles P1, Cuerdo P2, Jaime Marty P3, Aliens, Mehdi Hafidi, the former world champion, in P4, Carrillo 5, Lopez 6, 7, and Deck in 8th position. We get to see what the Irishman can do. What sort of strategy he's on, but we're going to have a little look once this begins to settle and the train begins to formulate and the gaps begin to build. We'll have a little look to see which tire each and every driver is on, so we can begin to manage what strategies they are on. Let me know in the chat what you think. What do you think Charles is up to here? He is building that gap, but we saw that the battery management is incredibly important. We'll take a little look down through the field to see what everyone is on. Mediums for Cuerdo, mediums for Jaime Marty, mediums for Mehdi Hafidi, mediums for Carrillo, mediums for Lopez, mediums Penalva, and every other driver, it seems, so far is starting on the medium tire. So we have no one so far has chosen the soft option. So everyone opting for the softer compound of tire at the end of the race, or to finish on most likely. But as it stands, the gap is growing substantially, and Charles is managing with the throttle that battery. You'll be able to see him start to go in at 75-80% on that battery to ensure that he is able to keep it charged for the straights. And you can see as he's coming into the braking zone there, the battery is beginning to deplete slightly, but the gap is beginning and still opening almost to 3 seconds. But we saw from Monday evening that means absolutely nothing over the scale of an almost hour-long race. That can be brought back very quickly. Having tested this, I can tell you the difference between battery and no battery on a lap is as much as 1.5 seconds. It is substantial when the battery goes, and even more difficult to gain it back. But everything seems to be settling in. I am just wondering, whenever we hit sort of 7, 6, 7, 8 laps, what the strategies are in play. We see that Deck has made it up into 7th place. We're going to go back with the chasing pack and have a little look at what they're doing and see a couple of drivers there beginning to make a little gap between P5 and P6, another 2-second gap to Lopez. But we're going to keep an eye on that battery. Look at the substantial amount of battery that Carrillo has. Look at the substantial amount that Mehdi and Cuerdo have. Again, over Charles. He's taken off incredibly fast, but again, 3 seconds. He doesn't know yet, but these guys behind him all have substantially more battery, and that can be the difference between thinking you're winning the race and all of a sudden you get swallowed up by the pack who've conserved battery. Looking in, we've got Moomin back in chat. Good luck, everyone. Yes, Pernva, just checking to see if Visceral Livery is showing up. No idea. Can't really comment on that piranha, but don't know what it looks like. So, again, gaps beginning to form. Deck How is Deck performing? Deck is performing very well, managing things, managing tires, managing the battery, and managing fuel. Fuel obviously is going to play a big factor in this race, by who is starting off and what they have to refuel. Remember, 3 liters per second. So for example, 6% difference in fuel will equate to 2 more seconds in the pits. That can add up very, very quickly over the course of a 20-minute stint, for example. And we can see there that, yeah, Cuerdo has a little bit less fuel, but some fuel savers potentially at the back of the field, just sitting in, tucking in, and maybe using that short shifting or a little bit of fuel mapping to protect what will essentially help them come on strong at the end. But yes, no, I think we do have the personalised liveries in place. We got Punisher, our P2 qualifier, on Monday evening. He's just settling into his race, and it seems that everybody is getting on top of this battery management. Gile, looking at his battery, P9, okay, sort of mid-grade, but the battery management is very strong. Penalva not quite as well on the battery in this instance, and Deck a little bit lower, but Lopez doing a great job. Jaime Marti doing a great job, Carrillo doing a great job, Medi doing an outstanding job, having learnt from his mistakes on Monday evening that put him in a real uncompromising position. 2.5 seconds off the leading 2 with little to no battery. Only for the fighting of the group ahead was he able to bring it back in, but he is on top of his strategy right now, very clearly monitoring everything on the track. And Cuerdo with the most battery of everyone. Charles is done. Charles is gone. His battery has gone. So we talked about getting these gaps and building these gaps up, and then maybe not being able to hold them off. So that was 3.5 seconds. I anticipate that this is going to come down potentially very quickly, should he not be able to regain some of that battery. But we'll keep an eye on that delta, and we'll sit with Cuerdo for the moment and see how he is able to catch the group and what sort of compliance is being done with Cuerdo, Medi, Carrillo and Jaime Marti. Is there going to be some form of compliance and bump draft and to rein them all in? When do they start fighting? When do they start thinking about their pits? As they're on lap 4 now of a 27 lap race with softs and mediums requirement, but in any order, as often as you want, whatever your strategy is within those confines. At times 2 fuel, times 2 tire wear. Let's see what happens. And you can see that Charles, we spoke about this, he's lost a second. He's lost a second in the best of 3/4 of a lap. I'm not sure what has happened with Charles, but for someone who was so strong at managing that battery on Monday evening, was so poised in holding back and not giving everything too early, he seems to have fallen a little bit victim to what he actually won against, as it was on Monday evening. He's got no battery and he's down to 2 seconds. So I think as far as it goes for Charles, I'm not too sure. Maybe someone in the chat can tell me, because I'm not aware of this dynamic. Does the battery recharge in the pit stop, and you get a fresh battery, or is that it for the remainder of the race unless you can rebuild it up? We saw that Deck was having some form of a battle up in P7 at one point. But it seems he's found himself in a little group of 4 or 5 there. You're sitting nip and tuck with a gap of 2 groups. Gile, Deck, J Murphy the Irishman, Penalva from Joker's team, and Gumu, all in a group together. We've got someone going very wide there. I will comment as he's coming in very narrow, my goodness. I think there's a little bit of argy-bargy going on there. Not too sure what's happening, but they're all over the place. Let's sit with the Irish driver, J Murphy, for a moment. But 2 groups appearing. Someone did comment earlier on that, what are you going to do about track limits? Well, there was a conversation had internally about this. We didn't want a situation occurring whereby, as an esports event, that it just did not have the optics you're hoping for in terms of what we're seeing in the daily races. So whilst there is no inbuilt penalty system, there are some conditions that have been stipulated for the drivers to run by. They've all received this as an email that there will be review for out of limits when a driver crosses the outer or inner boundary line off the track with all four wheels. Areas without curbs, the reference will be the white line closest to the track. Areas with curbs, the reference will be the outer white line that is in contact with the curb. And an infringement is only when all four wheels go beyond the limit and time advantage is gained. So both have to happen for that to be considered a penalty. If it happens on 3 times, obviously a penalty of 5 seconds will be issued. For a really egregious breach of track limits and benefit gained, a penalty can be handed out instantaneously on the first instance. So I hope that clarifies things for some of you who wondered, was this just going to turn into a bit of a farce, or was there going to be something in place to keep the drivers in line whenever it comes to self-policing themselves and racing this in the proper manner it is intended. Now we can see that gap is opening to Jay Lopez, 5 seconds. I think this is more around strategy than raw pace as it stands currently. We'll take a little look with that group. You can see again Jaime Marti is opened the gap to Carrillo. Carrillo sitting at 1.5 seconds, and Cuerdo is brought down the gap to Charles in his slipstream at this stage, with Mehdi Hafidi closely in tow. Carrillo just floating off the slipstream there, but keeping an eye on all of the battery. It is Cuerdo, the Kraken stage driver, who is replacing Manuel Hernandez in this event, is doing the absolute best on the battery and leading the pack and doing quite well on his tires as well, but a little bit more fuel used than some of the others. But I would all potentially argue that the battery management is potentially more important than the fuel management, given there is the ability to top it up in a pit stop. So let me know yourselves. It seems like this is a very much a strategic race to me. This feels very, very strategic. Everyone is dialed in on what they have to do. It doesn't seem like anybody is going for any over-the-top moves, nothing too aggressive. Everyone's happy to sit in line. I think this is going to be a game of two halves, that once we hit around lap 10 to 12 to 14 and we get some of these pit stops and we get into the third part of the third of the race from lap 20 to 27, that's when I think all of these strategies are going to start coming in and formulating in the middle, and we're going to see some very potentially aggressive driving. But as it stands, Charles has held that lead for 7 laps, opened it up to almost 4 seconds, depleted his battery. That's what we were concerned with and called it out. Cuerdo and a group of Cuerdo and Mehdi Hafidi have brought him back in. Mehdi slightly holding that gap to Carrillo. Carrillo, obviously, it's a very, very difficult thing when you're doing this, when you're driving in this race and you see a driver ahead and you're like, I just need slipstream, but you have to manage the battery. And they're managing the battery by driving the throttle at 75%. You can just see him holding it there. See, holding it 75, 80%. That's recharging the battery. So that's very, very tricky not to get too enthusiastic. Put the foot down and then use all your battery. So it's a real balancing act. It's a real awkward beast of a car to drive in its own right, but my goodness, having to manage the battery, the fuel, the tires, and your strategy, and stick to the game plan, not get too carried away of getting too lead-footed, is going to be the biggest test of all for these drivers. Sometimes you just have to let the gap open to manage that battery. But again, as you can see in the track map in the top right, 2 real groups forming there, and I wonder, is that indicative of 2 subsets of strategies being played here? We don't quite know yet, but I think in a couple more laps we're going to see some real differences in tires, real differences in fuel, and real differences in the battery, and how that starts to impact their decisions going forward. So just as a reminder, I can only see 8 drivers in the track at any one time, but if you do see someone on the top right in the map who's come into the pits, let me know so I can have a look at them to see what tire they are changing to, and keep a note of this because it will be quite hard to track the whole way through. But so far everyone started on the medium tires, and we just see here that Carrillo is falling off again. He's just not quite able to bridge the gap to Mehdi Hafidi. Charles has fallen back behind Cuerdo and just sitting in the slipstream now, getting the benefits. but I don't know what that means for the remainder of his race. I don't know if anyone has had it confirmed yet. Does the battery recharge in the pits, give you a fresh battery for another stint, or is that all you have left? If someone can confirm that, I don't quite know the answer. That would be very interesting, could play a part in the rest of the strategy of this race. But it seems that Cuerdo now, with the advantage, Charles playing defender of Mehdi Hafidi and keeping Mehdi at bay. Whether Mehdi wants to even make the pass at this stage, I'm not too sure. But we're 9 laps in, we're 1/3 of the way through this grand final of the Mac 25 2025 Trinity Series Gran Turismo Edition Grand Final at the Yas Marina. Only 1 week in the game. It's a fantastic track. I'm sure in time there'll be an update on the track limits. I hope to see this track being used to its full effect in the GT World Series next weekend, where we have our very own in the race right now, Jay Murphy, who will be contending that. We see that Jay Murphy has dropped all the way back to 12th place. I'm not sure if he was impacted by something. I do see the pace did fall off a little bit there in laps 7 and 8, and you can tell there's no battery in play. So he lost his battery, and like I said, he's lost his battery, and it's worth a second and a half. It could be a second or a second and a half of pace. If you lose that battery, if that battery goes, you're in a little bit of bother. Penalva also no battery, and Moray does have some battery and managing things, but it's all to play for here as they're coming through. It seems that Mehdi has got the job done on Charles, made his way through and is sitting comfortably in the slipstream of Cuerdo. A great job done by these guys to manage the battery, but Cuerdo, we're going to sit on with Cuerdo and just keep an eye on what he's doing. Let's take a lap with Cuerdo to see what is he doing for that management. Look at the 75%, holding the throttle at 75%, recharging that battery on every single straight. You can see it again, 75%. Not getting the most out of the car, but it pays dividends later parts of the race, as we've seen with Jay Murphy. He's used all of his battery, and once it's gone, it's incredibly hard. But once you retain it, as has Cuerdo done, he's still got 2/3 of battery left. I would argue that Cuerdo is sitting in an incredibly advantageous position, but there is several percent difference in the fuel. What does Mehdi Hafidi have planned? Charles is doing a great job to actually hold on with no battery whatsoever. Carrillo has floated around that 1.6, 1.7 seconds. They're all around 50% of fuel at this stage, which would tell me that nobody has really aggressively gone for the one-stopper, the 18-lap one-stopper, because I would anticipate that they'll have substantially more fuel, or potentially they are all going for the one-stopper. And in fact, if it is at 50%, that actually would mean that they would actually be on track for a stop around lap 18, lap 19. Maybe in fact they're actually all in the same strategy at this stage. Who knows? But time will tell. I imagined that if we were going to have a two-stopper, we would have been having a two-stopper window around about lap 10, as we suggested earlier. But I'm beginning to think that everyone has kind of saw the same idea and will be going for the one-stopper around about lap 18 to 20. If anyone can make it to lap 20, good for them, but lap 18 was as good as I was for. But I don't see anybody who is off the pace on fuel for this one-stopper, hence why potentially we have seen such a conservative race as a fuel saver. We haven't seen a whole lot of aggression. We have seen a lot of patience and poise in this first half of the race. But what does that mean in the pit stop? What does that mean for your final stint? What does that mean in terms of time lost or gained in the pit stop based upon fuel? And what does it mean for how aggressive and the ability to go aggressive at the end? Do you sacrifice a second and a half of time to give yourself more aggression on the throttle, to be able to sit and push a little bit harder? We've seen that the fuel management is a fine art. We saw Punisher get hit very badly, just 100 meters off the line that the fuel went, and it was curtains for him. He almost found himself in a position where he qualified in P2 and through no fault of his own with some damage found himself almost not qualifying at all. And could this happen? Could this create drama towards the end of the race were by fuel and fuel saving and aggressive fuel saving, and we see what we've seen in the last two races in our semi-finals. We see what happened in the finals of the elite race in GT Pole B between Jose Serrano and Antonio Santos, who were right down the fumes, running on fumes, fuel mapping, doing everything they could to get the car round the track. Antonio Santos coming up short in an outstanding performance for the young Frenchman, and he himself just running out of fuel about 100 yards before the line. Will something like that happen tonight? Will fuel be the big determining factor in this race? Will it be tires, or will it be the ability for Cuerdo to retain that battery, which seems to have an advantage over pretty much everybody else in the field? Jay Lopez is doing a good job at 10 seconds behind. Guile is doing a great job on the battery, but unfortunately 17 seconds off the pace. Not sure how much of that can be gained back. We're seeing some very big gaps open again. Punisher 20 seconds behind in P8, but ERS is Nixo P9. And we have Axion's Vikaman 10, Gumu 11, Deck in 12, and Penalva in P13, Moray P14 rounding out the field. But yes, you can see those two definitive groups on your screen, and not exactly sure what is the key factor, because these guys all displayed the raw pace. We know they all have the raw pace available to them, but is it battery? Is there some other factor that I haven't thought of? Are they all on the same strategy? Let me know your thoughts in the chat, what you think the strategies are going to be, because I'm out of options here. I don't know what has caused such a big gap so early on in this race, less than 50% of the race completed, but I think we will get some answers in the next number of laps as they begin to start filtering into the pits. And it's a game of who is going to blink first, who is going to make that first move, who's going to play their hand and show what strategy they're actually on, because this could all change in an instant. But I imagine and I anticipate that, with respectfully how slow the pace is, with the amount of saving going on, tire saving going on, the lack of aggression, I anticipate that they're all on the one stopper at this stage, and that may lead to something very interesting as to how much they fuel up in those pits when we keep our eyes on that. We've got My Team Esports in the chat. Let's go Punisher. Yep, Punisher, a very well respected driver, showing what he's capable of in the race, showing his ability to be resilient and overcome adversity with the damage he sustained, to come back in his second stint and push and give everything he had to get himself a qualifying spot. Great to see My Team as a new entrant to the Mac 25 gaming esports scene, but a very welcome addition. And we have obviously some familiar names and faces with Kraken Stains, Alien, Customs GT, Isles, and the new team Visceral, Jaime Marty heading them up. Formerly off Isles, Jaime Marty came onto the scene in a big way a couple of years ago, actually about 2 years ago, in the Winter GT World Series exhibition season. I think he almost won every single race at that stage and really put his name on the map. He's sitting down in P6 as it stands with Jay Lopez. You can see the tire wear is beginning, and he has fallen off because his battery has gone. Once it's gone, it's hard to get it back. So he may find himself in a position, a very difficult position that Jay Murphy now finds himself in, who's all the way down in P13, really not going probably the way the Irishman had hoped in this race. We didn't see what happened or what caused him to lose 3 or 4 seconds off the back of the middle group. Clearly there was some form of an incident there, whether it be self-inflicted or coming together, but it obviously has impacted his race. As such, it would appear he has pushed too hard and used that battery, and brought himself into those 53 lap times now. So you can see the lap times are really beginning to fall down for the drivers who haven't been able to maintain some form of battery in this race. But we'll go back up ahead. Punisher out of battery. Guile doing very, very well. 19 seconds to the leading group. Does Gile have something in the tank to come on strong? His tyres look absolutely amazing, by the way. The tyres look absolutely fantastic. Look at that compared to Jaime Marti. There's a story of two drivers, Gile and Jaime Marti. Look at the tyres, look at the fuel, look at the battery from Gile. 8 seconds off Jaime Marti. Jaime Marti, the tyres are gone on the rears, the fuel is low and he's low on battery, but he's 8 seconds up the road. And these things can lead to the story of this race. I don't know that Gile is out of this because of how strong he is performing in all fronts of management, but the question will need to be asked later on, and it can't be asked now, is he being too conservative? Has he been too conservative, or is there something in the tank that's going to bring him back up into that leading pack? At the moment, with Carrillo 1 second off Hafidi, 1 second off Cuerdo, appear to be leading this race. Appears to be a 4-horse race at the lead, and then a 7-second gap to the two drivers, Lopez and Jaime Marti, and then another 7-second gap to Gile, and that's the fragmented remainder of the group. So we'll keep an eye on Charles. Remember, Charles started in the lead, went off like a rocket, held it for 5 or 6 laps, unfortunately burnt through all of his battery and had that lead diminish. But I have to say, he's done an outstanding job being able to stay with the other drivers despite having no battery, and his tyres are not looking too bad at all. Medi Hafidi and Cuerdo appear to be the ones that are struggling the most on the tyres. Medi Hafidi on both the fronts and the rears. Cuerdo has protected the fronts, a little bit in the rears, but Charles, the pad driver, seems to have the best tyres of them all, and that was the case on Monday evening, where Charles was able to manage his tyres to a better effect than the driver he was chasing down, Jose Art, who had taken an early lead. So as it stands, 15 laps in, you can see Charles is potentially looking around the outside, off oils. Jay Carrillo decides better off it just to filter in at this stage. But are we beginning to get that position where people are beginning to think about moves? Is this where the drivers are beginning to think about where the fuel is? The fuel is pretty even. Apart from Cuerdo, I would say he is potentially 1.5 to 2 seconds behind in the pits on fuel, but a 3.5 second gap to offset that to Medi Hafidi. I would imagine the drivers are now in a position whereby they are thinking about when this pit entry will happen. There's our first pit entry. It's going to be Charles. Charles is coming in on lap 15. What does he have in store for us? What tyre is he going to go on? Our first pitter on lap 15. What is he going to go for? This is very, very interesting as it stands. Very, very interesting to see how much fuel he puts in. And everyone will be able to see this on their screen as well to get an idea as to how much he's going to take himself to the line. Was he getting fed up, getting held back in traffic? Has he put enough fuel? Has he overfueled? And what tyre is he going for? Is it a second set of mediums where we said 2 mediums and then a soft to finish with? And I think we have a few others coming in now as well. Charles is on the softs. My goodness, he is planning on doing an outstanding stint on the soft tyres. I don't know who else we had through there. I think it was certainly a little bit of damage picked up for Moray. Nixo has come into the pits. Nixo has refueled up to 71. That's quite a substantial amount of fuel. We'll see where he is at and what tyre he is up to for the soft as well. My goodness, really looking at 11 laps in the softs, that is quite substantial. I don't know if that is going to be possible to maintain throughout the remainder of the race, but we will certainly get a look to see how he manages that. But so far we've got 2 pitters. It appears to be Charles and Nixo for ERS. So far, I imagine we'll start to see them begin to filter in the later laps. Jaime Marti really struggling with his tyres. You can see that Gile has brought that advantage down to 2.5 seconds, formerly 8 seconds. Like we saw, his management of both fuel, of battery, of tyres has been significant. And I'm beginning to wonder, has he done enough to leave himself a very strong soft stint at the end? Medi Hafidi is in lap 17 for Mehdi Hafidi. Jaime Marti also in, as is Gile is in. My goodness, Gile is coming in. I did not think that Gile would be in this early. He was doing so well in the medium tyres. So we have Mehdi Hafidi. I imagine that they're all going to be out again. So 17 for, I believe it was Mehdi Hafidi. Lap 17 for the Visceral driver. And Gile, who is the Ava driver, lap 17 also, I imagine, also on softs. So, deck sitting in P7 as it stands with the other hitters behind. What does that mean? I do imagine that 11 laps is 11 laps is quite substantial on the soft tyre. But we do have Mehdi Hafidi out in a fresh set of softs. Punisher will be looking to come in pretty soon. Charles up into P4, 30 seconds off the lead. Fresh tyres. We got obviously Lopez, Carrillo, and Cuerdo yet to make their pit stop. I imagine Cuerdo is coming in now. Cuerdo with a almost over 6.5 second gap. Very, very low in fuel. I imagine he is getting ready to bring it in now into the pits. We'll just have a little look. Very, very narrow pit entry. Mistakes can be made there. I wonder, does anybody unfortunately get themselves a 3-second pit stop penalty, as we saw with Jose Art on a Monday evening? But I imagine this is going to be soft tires for everybody. It seems to be the one stopper is the way to go, and it seems to me that it's going to be a case of fuel and how long you're out in your tires. Alex coming in and Charles coming in on lap 15, but Charles being the guy who was best on the tire management, potentially having the Queen Air. Cuerdo, Carrillo and Lopez also in on lap 18. We did think that lap 18 would be the way to go, so I think we maybe have had all. Jay Lopez deck is in also 18. I don't know if we've got anyone out there who has not pitted, but it's looking to me very much like lap 18 was potentially the optimum strategy. So we filter through. Charles taking the lead, 3-second gap, having done the massive undercut of a potentially 3 laps. Cuerdo coming out now with only a 3-second disadvantage, but remember, battery and 3-lap fresher soft tires. Hafidi, Mehdi come in lap 17, he's in the softs and he's brought himself back into the slipstream of Cuerdo. I imagine they'll all have pretty much no battery by the end of this. Lopez is pitted. Penalva, so we're really waiting on Penalva to pit. Penalva has managed himself all the way around to lap 19, so I imagine that he will be pitting this lap. He has to be pitting this lap. Jaime Marti, again, P7 for him. He's got some time to make up and he seems to be a little bit lesser in the field there. But Gile, what sort of a charge can Gile do, having been able to manage his tyres, his fuel and his battery so well through 2/3 of this race? 18 laps out of 27 in this Mach 25 Gaming Trinity Series grand finale at the Yas Marina. And again, I'm just checking to make sure that everyone else on the board has pitted at this stage, and that seems to be the case with only, it seems to be Penalva ready left to pit. So we were going to keep an eye on Charles, 2.5-second advantage, and I reckon that everybody else is lap 18. The rogue elements on this strategy appear to be Charles and ERS's Nick. So lap 15, what does that mean for them? The last few laps already, the gap appears to be coming down. Remember that Charles has had no battery and Cuerdo has done an outstanding job, 19 laps retaining that battery. But Mehdi Hafidi, we've talked about it, we've talked about the experience, we've talked about his discipline, his ability to be able to manage a race, having seen it and done it all in his own right in longer, more strategic esports races, to be able to manage a field. And he is sitting very, very well in a very, very strong position in P3 on his fuel and his tyres. But will it be the battery differential that Cuerdo has been able for Krakensteins to maintain for the entirety of this race? I think he may be one of the only drivers with battery left. There's maybe a few with some, and Gile is the man with the most fuel of all. A late stopper, but has he left it too late? Has he held too much back? How many seconds will these drivers lose on the last 3 or 4 laps when the tire wear begins to really kick in? How much of an element is the battery going to come into effect? We see Gile now is right over Jaime Marde, who was formerly 8 seconds ahead. It looks like a matter of fact that this overtake will be done into the home straight, I would imagine, but ultimately Gile is working his way through the field. I'm not sure exactly what is happening here with Cuerdo, but Cuerdo is closing the gap down now in the slipstream to Charles. As it stands, Cuerdo is the man in pole position on all fronts, having delivered just now the fastest lap of the race. 146.898, the fastest lap for Cuerdo, getting a touch of slipstream, maybe using a little bit of that battery. I think once the pass is ready to be made, does Charles begin to defend because he has no battery and knows he won't be able to retain, or does he let him through and try and hold on to that slipstream till the end of the race, knowing that he is on 3-lap older soft tyres? I think that tire wear will begin to be more visible with his differences in about 3 or 4 more laps time, but ultimately Charles is still retaining the lead, but it's Cuerdo, the Kraken stage driver, who at this stage is really making himself felt with an executed plan and is sitting in pole position on all fronts. Medi is just dropping off slightly as it stands, but remember, this happened on Monday evening. He dropped off to 2.5 seconds, and within a couple of overtaking manoeuvres between the front 2 drivers, he was back in the slipstream and fighting for the win right to the very, very last corner. And it's Carrillo himself also with a little bit less fuel than Hafidi is looking set in P4. Lopez, Jaime Marde and Gile. This is a very, very tough battle for Jaime Marde. I imagine that Gile will make his way through, but once he does, is he able to bridge a 15-second gap to Lopez or a 25-second gap to the front? I'm not too sure. I don't imagine that to be the case. So we'll sit with our leaders, Cuerdo, who's getting in striking distance now to make a move, sitting at 2/10. I imagine he'll be looking to make that move before this next chicane, ideally, or does he hold off for another lap and just use this to recharge? Look at the throttle at 80%. Is he recharging? Is he sitting nicely? I think that's exactly what he's doing, which is why sometimes you'll see these drivers sit and slip and actually lose some time because they are recharging the battery. That's exactly what Cuerdo has done, knowing that Carrillo and Medi are 3.5 seconds. Ideally, understand that Charles had dropped off with his own battery. Cuerdo is sitting pretty and doing exactly what needs to be done. Making the move now, however, I think he saw that Charles slowed down a little bit there, was given the indication it was time to make that move. And again, Cuerdo has gone purple on this lap, and I think this is the moment where we're going to see him begin to maybe use some of that battery and begin to push to see if he can string this out on another 7 laps. There's another 6 or 7 laps to go and bring this victory back for himself and for Kraken Staines. But my goodness, what a incredible race we were in for. If Carrillo making his way past Medi, now what does Carrillo have to add to the conversation? Can he bridge this gap of 3.5 seconds to Charles? Can he get himself into the conversation? Goodness forbid anything bad happening to the lead too, but can he make himself felt? And you're seeing the respect given of the drivers as they come to the last corner. That's been the most controversial corner within daily races, but they're respecting the limits and self-policing again on turn 1. Self-policing, that's what we like to see. Not leaving it in the hands of the judges, not leaving it in the hands of the adjudicators at the post-race to be applying any penalties. I think everyone has raced well within the limits from what we've been able to see ourselves so far. But as it stands, Cuerdo opening that gap to 1.1 seconds to Charles, still retaining some of the battery, still sitting on the 75% of throttle to regain some of that battery. I think it seems to be that battery management is going to trump all, and you know, to be quite candid with you, he's ahead on fuel as well and ahead on tyres. I think for Charles at this stage, Charles may be sitting thinking, how long can I hold on for? I'm probably not fighting for the win here, but can I get myself in a position whereby I can at least hold on to some form of a podium, even P2? Or does Carrillo, with a 3-second gap, come on strong towards the end? There's a little bit of battery left. Can Carrillo, the Isles driver, bring back the customs driver Charles and make it into some form of three-way race for P2? But as it stands, Cuerdo again sitting very, very comfortably, just bringing it round lap after lap after lap. Fastest lap of the race, P1 on the grid. Brought in Charles in the first stint and surpassed him and maintained that battery the entire time. He has now broken the slipstream to 1.7 seconds. Now you're going to see that gap really begin to open up. It wouldn't be unthinkable to see a gap of potentially a second or more per lap now begin to build up for Cuerdo, given that the slipstream is broken. You can see it's almost on every exit, it's almost a couple of tenths or a tenth or more per exit, and he's on the fastest lap. He's now knowing that this is really his to lose. He just has to bring it home, and he's beginning to deliver some of that pace that he's been holding in the bag, protecting that battery throughout 23 laps of this 27 lap race. Going back to Carrillo not really bridging the gap to Charles, but he is extending the gap to Hafidi in P4, now down at 3 seconds behind. How is Hafidi doing on his tyres? He's not doing so well. Remember, it was Mehdi Hafidi came in one lap earlier on lap 17, as opposed to the Krakenstein's driver in lap 18. But the tyre management seems to be the big difference here for the Isles driver. Carrillo putting himself into that podium position for this race. Lopez 3 seconds off Mehdi, and Gile having made his way through Jaime Marte. We did say he was doing exceptionally well on tyres, on fuel, on battery, but it would appear that maybe it's just a little bit too little too late. He certainly seems to have the pace with the lap times he's putting in. He's put in, you know, a 46.9 of his own accord. You know, he's literally only 1/10 off Cuerdo's fastest lap, but did he just hold too much back early on in the earlier stages of the race? Did he find himself trapped in the midfield and tailed off the leaders, because the pace is absolutely there? But unfortunately, it would seem that it may be P6 at a best push for Gile, barring any incidents or accidents. We'll go back up with our leaders and see if the gap is coming down. It is coming down. The gap is increasing. Carrillo is the driver on the move at the moment, opening that gap from 3 seconds now to 4.7 seconds, but closing it from 3 seconds to 2 seconds to Charles. This is looking like the battle. Cuerdo, again, we mentioned 1 second per lap. He's picked up a penalty, but I don't think it's going to have any form of material impact on his gapping, that he's gapping it more than a second a lap as it stands. Obviously, he's not going to be at panic stations just yet, but it's Charles who is now going to be thinking about the driver behind him. Can he hold off 2 seconds in lap 25, 26 and 27? We've got 3 full laps left in this race. Once Carrillo, with a little bit of battery, gets in the slipstream, this could be the battle to watch for. This could be the one that determines the top 3. I think that's the battle that we're going to see unfold as it comes down to 1.8 seconds. Entering into, or finishing up lap 24, and Cuerdo, I believe, has now served his penalty, and again, it's had absolutely no impact on his lead. It's still at 3.7 seconds. So barring anything untoward, Cuerdo should bring this home. Should be our winner. Should be, touch wood, but I think we're going to have an almighty battle behind as that gap closes down to 1.6 seconds. We're going to stay on board with Charles and Carrillo. I think that P2 and P3 might be safe, both of them. Charles taking the decision to go off like an absolute rocket ship at the start of his stint. Was that by design? Was that a little bit of nerves kicking in that he's gone off so fast from the start, thinking that other drivers would hold him and spent his energy too early? Or is this exactly how he wanted this race to play out, feeling that maybe a podium is what his best result could be? But I don't believe that, because he's seen he can win in these lobbies many times. I'm just uncertain as to why he was so aggressive at the start. But I'm sure we'll hear from both these drivers as Carrillo bringing that gap down to 1.5 seconds. He's just now on the fringes of slipstream. Now he's in the slipstream, and now we can see many tenths are beginning to come down. What is the fuel differential? It would appear that Carrillo has both better tyres. They're both out of battery, it would appear, and a slight potential advantage on fuel for Charles. Medi, it seems to me, is potentially going to be in the battle himself with Lopez. Lopez coming on very strong. Medi Hafidi's tyres are absolutely gone at this stage. There's literally nothing on them. It's a very, very tricky car to manage on the tyres. Having come in just even a lap earlier has made a substantial difference, and I think that Lopez, sitting so pretty as he is, will be able to make the pass at some point. But we're going to go back on board with Carrillo. Carrillo chasing down the Charles CGT driver, with Cuerdo extending that gap to 5.5 seconds. But lap 26, 1 second separating P2 and P3. Is this going to come down to a last lap battle, a last lap attempt to grab that second position in this grand final of Trinity Series Gran Turismo Edition? Or will Charles be able to hold it off with his guile, with his discipline, with his ability to defend, with his experience of knowing just when to push and when to pull? And you can see that he's went into the red. You can see that Carrillo is into the red. We can see that Cuerdo is into the red. They've timed this down to the final lap. They will be very, very close to the bone as it comes to fuel management, but it's looking very much like Cuerdo is going to bring this home. But can Charles hold off the charge from Carrillo with this fuel battle as they're about to enter into the final lap of this race? Only a few more corners to go, and they will be entering into the final lap, and it is down to half a second. Carrillo has brought it right back in at the right time, sitting, waiting, looking. But what is the defense of Charles going to be? What is the defense he has been able to put up? How can he defend when both of them are out of fuel, both of them are now out of battery, and both of them will be looking to manage their fuel with their shifting for the remainder of this race? 5 tenths is the gap. Really, 2 tenths, sub 2 tenths is the delta you're looking at whenever it's ready to make a fair move. So I think that's the number that Isles Carrillo will be looking for, is to get himself into that 2 tenths range to make a move, maybe on the first hairpin, maybe coming into the chicane, or maybe in the technical section we see a last ditch effort to get the win and get it over the line. Cuerdo extending that gap to 7 seconds in the clean air, but this is the battle we're looking for, down to 2.5 tenths. Charles looking to see can he maintain that lead as he's going to enter into this straight into the chicane one last time. It's under 3 tenths. It's looking like it's going to be, he's extending the guy. I think Carrillo's fuel saving. I do believe that Carrillo is doing some form of fuel mapping. Maybe he is right on the limits himself. If there's a % or 2 difference, he's down to 7 tenths as we enter into the chicane. Charles holding his own. Charles holding off that attempt from Carrillo. What does Carrillo have? If he runs out of fuel, he'll be caught by Jay Lopez. Can he have something left in the tank? Is this where he saved his fuel for? Is this the move that's going to be made in order? Where did he go? Oh my goodness, did he go off the track? Did he have a look? He didn't. He wasn't able to make it stick. Looking around the outside now, it's nose to tail through this technical section. What do they have left in the tank? Can Charles hold a narrow line, send him around the outside of the track? Is he going for the cutback? He's gone for the cutback, and he's made the move. Can he make it stick to the line? What are these 2 young drivers going to be able to do? Where's Charles, our pad driver, Pad King, the Spanish driver, in on the inside, and the 2 of them are going side by side. battling tooth and nail. This is not over yet. Carrillo sending Charles out wide. Charles having a look on the inside, taking the wide line. It's one corner left to go. Who's it going to be? Will it be Carrillo? Will it be Charles? It's looking like Carrillo is going to bring this home in P2. Charles in P3. Arwino, Cuerdo brought it over the line with a 10-second advantage. But that was a beautiful battle to be had for our podium to close it out with Lopez in 4th, Mehdi Hafidi in 6th. It looks like Gile is going to bring it back with a standing drive in P6. But that is it. That is our champion, Cuerdo, Krakenstein's Cuerdo. He is the Trinity Series winner at Yas Marina in the grand final. Mac 25 Gaming presenting this to you. What an outstanding drive. What an outstanding measured drive from Cuerdo from start to finish. Managing his fuel, managing his battery, managing his tires, and taking home the victory for the Krakenstein's outfit. Carrillo and Charles, an excellent battle of side by side, looking underneath, looking on the outside. I think Carrillo realized he had gone off the track and did not want to take advantage that way. Ironically, very similar to the move we saw with Lando Norris, I think, overtaking at this past weekend in the same spot, perhaps. But it's looking very much like, barring any after-the-fact penalties, that Cuerdo is going to be our winner and champion. An outstanding drive from all. Let us know what you thought. I think that race was an outstanding demonstration of what can be done with a strategy race. With we'll just go to the results page. Let me see. With a slightly longer race, 50-minute race, and what can be done whenever you have all factors and elements included. I think me suggesting that I would have finished 40 seconds off the lead was probably generous to myself. More likely to be a minute. But those are your top 8 finishers. Cuerdo, Carrillo, Charles, Lopez, Hafidi, Gile, Jaime Marti from the Visceral team, Axion's Vika Man, and that's really all I can say at this stage. Nixo bringing it in P9, Moray P10, Punisher just not really able to make it up from starting so far back on the grid. We've got Deck J Murphy, the Irish driver. I wonder what his thoughts are, and wonder what happened to him with his strategy and how he was impacted. We did see that he lost a considerable amount of time earlier on in the race. Gumu and Penalva round it out. So those are your winners. That is it, essentially. I'm sure there will be some form of a review done on any of the track limits that were exceeded, if there's any protest put in, but we have to just call it as we see it, as it stands. Krakenstein's Cuerdo is your champion, and an outstanding drive. Hopefully you've all enjoyed that. I've certainly enjoyed that, and I really just want to say at this stage, thank you all so much for showing up. Thank you for your patience with us earlier on in the stream when things unfortunately didn't quite go to plan with a technical issue. You know, it can throw you a little bit, but we try and adapt. So thank you for your patience with that. Thank you to all the drivers who gave their time up to race this event, to Jay Murphy, who's interrupted his preparation for the World Finals. We'll be supporting him next weekend when he drives for the McLaren outfit. And all of the organizers, to yourselves and the Mac 25 gaming team for putting this all together, and yourselves for coming out and supporting the driver. That's what this is all about. That's why I'm doing this. It's just to support the drivers and give an outlet for these guys to go and do some proper races that really isn't being facilitated within the daily race scene as it stands. And we're not exactly getting a whole heap of GTWS, but I would argue that some of these races are even better. But from me, Flash Dagger, to yourselves, if I don't see you, have a wonderful Christmas and an outstanding new year. Look after yourselves, take care of each other, reach out to each other, check in with each other, make sure you're all doing well, and if anyone needs to chat at any stage, you know where to reach me. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Take care.